So my next question is about bringing this vision to action. What do you feel is the action needed now to bring transformative adaptation to reality? And how can people help and get involved in this work?
Mm. Well, such an important question. Thank you so much for asking it. So let me start by saying one more thing about how we might think about transformative adaptation. So at least as we see it in the collective, transformative adaptation is a sort of a practical philosophy. It's a way of understanding what's going on in part of this space and what else could be going on in it. So if we think about it first then in terms of the sort of spectrum of the different kinds of stuff people do in relation to climate. So you start off with prevention or precaution, which is where we ought to have been, but tragically that ship has to some extent sailed now. We then have mitigation of harm, which means in the way that that term is used in climate discourse, reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, which obviously is also crucial, but now obviously, sadly, no longer enough. You then have the different forms of adaptation. So I've mentioned on the one hand, you've got deep adaptation, which in my opinion is absolutely crucial because it is as I said earlier, tragically now likely that we'll be facing either Dodo or hopefully Phoenix as our future. On the other extreme, you have shallow, defensive, incremental adaptation, which is most of what adaptation has meant up to this date. And that in many ways is worse than nothing. Defensive adaptation is in many ways creates the illusion that we can perpetuate our society as it is, that we can simply adapt to the damage that we've caused while remaining within this current paradigm. That's an absolutely brittle way forward. It will not work. And then, as it were, between those two, but overlapping much more with deep adaptation than with incremental adaptation, is transformative adaptation, which envisages system change and aims at preventing collapse if possible, while being realistic about the likelihood that it may well not be possible. So transformative adaptation as we see it is a way of understanding this space and a way of understanding, as I've been describing in this interview, what we could and should be doing within this space. It therefore is naturally allied with lots of existing organizations or approaches. I've mentioned permaculture and the transition towns movement. We could talk about agroecology and the agroecological revolution that is gradually sweeping through parts of the world and needs to be massively stepped up. We could talk about organizations, for example, climate emergency centers, like the Transformative Adaptation Collective. They sort of spun off from Extinction Rebellion among people who have wanted to do something more sort of proactive and positive in relation to the crisis. And climate emergency centers are really getting going now in the UK. They're directly allied to the transformative adaptation paradigm, and there's some overlap of personnel, which is super. So transformative adaptation, you may already be doing it, and certainly I think it's certain that there's going to be a lot more of it in future. And organizations like the Glacier Trust are helping to fund some of it abroad already in parts of the global south. But what needs to be done to step this up? Well, obviously you can get involved in any of these organizations. Obviously you can proselytize for transformative adaptation. You can get involved in the sort of discourses around this and argue that this kind of approach needs to be taken a lot more seriously. If you want, you are very welcome to seek to get directly involved with us in the collective. Go to www.transformative-adaptation.com, and we're developing a website there, which sort of puts all of this together and aims to try to sort of bring together people who are in this kind of nexus, who are in this kind of field, and to make this concept more widely available. As we started out this interview by saying, it is absolutely clear that adaptation will be a huge wave of the 2020s. It is so vital that it gets defined correctly, and that approaches within the adaptation sphere, which are not maladaptation, which genuinely are transformative, which genuinely are forward looking, and which are in potential alliance with social movements, etc., which are already trying to transform our society for the better. There's really very little that is more vital than that. And in terms of defending ourselves intelligently against what's coming down, and wisely against what's coming down the track at us with climate and ecological decline that is here and is to some extent baked in. I really would commend transformative adaptation to people. I hope the chapter in the book will prove useful and fruitful. And I think the conversation that the book is trying to mobilize is an absolutely crucial one in the context of this absolutely crucial COP